So for review number 90, we're going to play Mega Man 4. No, not this one. This one. The one for Game Boy. That's right, this is the first Game Boy game I've gotten a chance to review. And it's a fun one. I'm not going to bother you with the story, because if you've played one Mega Man game of your entire life, you've heard it all before. Dr. Wily throws out 8 Robot Masters to create chaos and destruction, and Mega Man destroys them to gain their powers and eventually defeat Dr. Wily. End. The difference with Mega Man 4 is that you only start off against 4 of the Robot Masters: Pharaoh Man, Ring Man, Bright Man, and Toad Man. At first, I thought that was due to a limitation of space on the Game Boy, but I was a little mistaken there, because after those 4 are defeated, you go on to fight Crystal Man, Napalm Man, Charge Man, and Stone Man. Wait a minute, that's not right. Those guys are from Mega Man 5 on NES. Yeah, they combined 2 games into one. Already I have to give this game some kudos, just for that. So before I move on to the exact specifics about the game, let me do my normal Mega Man around the table and talk about each Robot Master. First off is Toad Man. It starts off in a heavy storm, complete with a flooding area and sewer with mice and slime. The rain does give you some resistance, as does the flooded walkways, as the water will push you around. The biggest pain in the ass are these damn snails. They can only be attacked when their eyes are open, and it's just for a second at a time. Eventually you'll come to Toad Man, who is a complete pushover. The catch is that if you can't prevent him attacking, his acid rain will be guaranteed to damage you. To stop him from firing at you, just shoot him when he starts to dance. That's all you need to do. Next up is Ring Man. It features a bunch of turrets on the wall and beams that will disappear in a certain direction when you step on them. This can result in needing split-second reactions because a lot of those beams are above cliffs and spikes. Ring Man can be difficult if you don't know how to properly dodge his rings. You'll throw one on the ground, leap up, and throw another. Then run to where you're standing and repeat. It'll take some practice to be able to kill him, and I consider him to be one of the harder bosses of the game. Third is Pharaoh Man. Naturally, this stage takes place in a desert and Egyptian-style ruins. Nothing else is really of any note here, so we'll move on to the boss. He'll hop around throwing little projectiles at you, but will occasionally stop to charge up a wave attack. This does a ton of damage, so you may want to really be sure that you can dodge it. Coming up next is Bright Man. Just like the NES counterpart, this level has those damn light puzzles, where if you shoot a certain enemy, the lights will go out, and you'll need to destroy another one to get them back on. This is just as much of a pain as it was before, especially when you get onto the stupid lifts here. Add in a new platform that raises when you stand on it, and this level is just hellish. You also have these new robot lifts, which took me a bit to figure out that they only go up when you jump. Otherwise, they just move downwards and you'll find death quickly. Bright Man is pretty simple. The only thing that you can't do is avoid his time freeze, so just hope you can get him to shoot and miss at you until you can move again. After fighting the first 4 enemies, Mega Man goes on to fight Dr. Wily and you're immediately confronted by a boss. Although it starts off easy enough, it can take some practice to learn the attack patterns. You'll then confront Dr. Wily, who then runs away and you get pitted against a new guy named Ballister. After that, you get to fight the next 4 Robot Masters. So instead of talking about the same robots I've already covered in my Mega Man 5 review, we're just going to move on to Wily's stage. Now, in order to access it, you had to have found the Wily letters in the previous 4 stages. They aren't very hard to find, as they're typically somewhere open. After that, you find a few small areas as normal, except this time around there's no map. Also, unlike the Robot Master stages, these levels are relatively short, and don't take too much time to complete. You'll then fight Wily, and just like every other game, he has 2 different forms. One is the tank-like form. It's not too hard, it'll just fling its arms at you and you just jump on them and line up a good shot at the orb. After this form falls, it's down to a smaller version, which is only vulnerable through the open mouth. Its attack patterns are pretty predictable, so you really shouldn't have too much trouble destroying it, but hopefully you saved up on some E-tanks, just in case. Now that you got all the stages out of the way, it's time to talk about the main draw point for Mega Man 4. It's basically the NES's Mega Man 4 and 5, but in portable form. It's replicated perfectly in its smaller form though. Sure, the music isn't of the best quality, but it's still played out like its more colorful brother. Even the graphics are incredibly detailed for a black and white game. That's not to say that if you own the NES games that you shouldn't play the Game Boy port. There's enough differences to really make it stand out. For one, the power shots that you have access to will eventually push you back a small distance from the force of the shot. This is a pretty cool feature, and because of it, you have to be careful when firing your shots to prevent falling into a trap. Another feature that was taken from the Mega Man 7 game on the SNES is the shop. By finding power chips, you can trade for some items such as extra lives, energy tanks, and complete weapon recharges. These items aren't cheap, so you definitely want to buy the important stuff first, like the item that automatically chooses where your weapon energy refills go. This reminds me, unlike other Mega Man games, your weapon's energy doesn't get refilled at the end of every stage. This means that you have to be a bit more careful with your special weapons. You also have to be a bit more careful with your health too, because the game seems to be a bit more difficult. Maybe it's a smaller screen, but you don't seem to have as large of a health meter as NES games. Enemies also seem to do more damage, and life recovery power-ups seem to be a bit harder to find. Hell, even extra lives are much more rare. That doesn't make the game impossible, but it does make it much harder. Mega Man's bullets also travel much slower. The charge shots are fine, but due to the slower regular shots, you may need to time them a little bit. In addition to these slowed shots, you do occasionally get some slowdown in the game too. It doesn't happen too much, but it's bound to happen on a smaller system with this much detail. Mega Man 4 does have a bit of static when it comes to the sounds, but again, I'm thinking this is more of a Game Boy limitation. Again, it's just a slight console issue and shouldn't really be faulted to the game. In closing, Mega Man 4 is definitely a game that you should own if you have a Game Boy and travel a lot, because it will definitely make long journeys enjoyable. With the accurate details from the NES games, it's definitely able to live up to the Mega Man legacy. Final score? 8 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.